And he's made smaller movies now. Even Magic Mike's Last Dance is a significantly smaller movie than something like Logan Lucky, I think. This big kind of classic Hollywood heist movie. And he just seems to have kind of accepted his place in the Hollywood ecosystem, which is, I have less interest, it seems to me, I have less interest in making these big blockbuster movies because I don't really understand the blockbuster mentality of today. Mm-hmm. And it is funny that is kind of my interpretation because he's currently making a third movie in a franchise. So in many ways, he is kind of following the formula, although certainly there's a big difference between the Magic Mike franchise and the Avengers or whatever. And, Soderbergh could go make an Avengers movie. I'm sure Feige would be like, yeah, you want to make, I don't know who's left. I don't even know. Some Doctor Strange 3. Sure. You can do that. But he clearly just has no interest in that. It was the Ocean's films. Ocean's 11, the original, is like not a good movie. It's not good. And they were like, you have free reign to do this. You're not remaking The Godfather here. Just make a heist movie. And he did it. He made it his own. And now nobody else can make an Ocean's 11 movie, I don't think. Although, they did Ocean's 8, I guess. But as far as actually reframing that original film and rebooting that franchise, I don't know that it could be done because he kind of made the definitive version of that movie.
Yeah, so what's really interesting to me about that and what you're saying there, I think, and maybe you'll push back on this, and that's okay, but I would argue that Soderbergh himself has proved that the notion that nothing can be remade is not necessarily true because, as I noted earlier, I think Solaris, and I love Tarkovsky. I love him, but I think his version of it is just as good as Tarkovsky's. Fundamentally, I don't subscribe to the notion that a classic movie is the automatic be-all, end-all. I just don't think that's untrue. And I think, not Tarkovsky, but I think Soderbergh has somewhat proven that with his version of Solaris. And it certainly doesn't take away from Tarkovsky's iteration of that film. It's a classic. It's a masterpiece. Many consider it to be one of the best movies ever made. And that's very fair. I do think it is very good. I love Tarkovsky's version of that film. But there's something about Soderbergh's treatment of it that I think heightens it emotionally. I think the performances are a little bit more engaging, and that maybe goes back to what you're saying in terms of how he's able to channel movie stars and get the best out of them. And Tarkovsky wasn't interested in garnering legendary performances. That wasn't really his forte. And so I think there's
very different movies.
They are, absolutely. I don't disagree with that. But I say all of that to say, in 20, 30, 40 years, if someone else wants to do a remake of Soderbergh's Ocean's 11, it seems a little odd, and it's hard to fathom that anyone would ever top it. But based off of what my experience with Solaris, I'm not opposed to someone else trying in time because of that. And I get that everyone won't agree with that. That's kind of where I stand on it. And it's funny to me that Soderbergh is the reason why. Like, Soderbergh himself is the reason why I'm okay with someone else doing another one of his movies.
I would say the difference is he had such a different spin on Solaris, such a reinterpretation. I don't know how you reinterpret Ocean's 11. It's just like, I'm going to make the most entertaining movie of all time. and he pretty much did it.
You never know. Someone else could do it, though.
Yeah. But he, the Solaris comparison is really fascinating because Soderbergh is so much more focused on the emotion of that film, whereas Tarkovsky is much more philosophically minded.
Very, yeah.
And that's a really heady movie it throws a lot of dialogue at you. It throws a lot of ideas at you. Whereas Solaris is a movie that really makes you feel, really wants to make you feel. It's a much more elemental film, I think, than Tarkovsky's film. And I definitely do prefer the Tarkovsky movie, but the Soderbergh Solaris certainly has its merits. So you're totally right. Soderbergh did just kind of throw my own theory about his films in my face. So a very good point, a very valid point.
Yeah. Well, I mean, I guess as we somewhat transition into his filmography and the movies that maybe resonate the most with us, for me, it is Solaris. That's a top 3 Soderbergh for me. And I don't know, the more I think about it, and I know that this is very hot takey, I don't really mean it to be, but it truly might be my favorite Soderbergh movie. Ocean's 11 is great. And I will distinct that, the difference between favorite and best. In terms of Soderbergh's best movie, that very well could go to Out of Sight or one of the Ocean's movies. I know you guys prefer Ocean's 12. I probably will stand with Ocean's 11. But
11 is my favorite, although 12 I think is like also kind of a masterpiece. But
there's something about that emotional approach to Solaris that I really love, and I do appreciate the Tarkovsky version. It is perhaps a little bit more pragmatic. It is more heady and philosophical for sure. I also think that Clooney gives the better performance of the lead performances. And again, that's not really a Tarkovsky thing. He wasn't concerned with that as much as the fundamental
I will say
dichotomies
this.
at the core of that movie. But I don't think that Soderbergh, and what I really love and appreciate about Soderbergh, I don't think that he sacrifices that philosophy for emotion. I still think that philosophy is still there. That central question presented at the core, at the nucleus of even the Tarkovsky version, is still at the heart of Soderbergh's, but it is much more felt, perhaps less psychological, but I'm okay with that. To me, I much prefer, of course, people know me, I much prefer the emotional element of it, and then there's the performance at the center with Clooney, and also just Soderbergh's filmmaking, the craft of it. Again, while different than Tarkovsky, I don't think is without merit. It still has all those great Soderbergh-isms I love in terms of close-ups, in terms of how he edits, how he jumps time in that film. I just love the craft at the center of it as well. It is maybe underratedly one of his better shot movies. And yeah, I will still argue that it is one of his best, but even if it's not his best, it might be my personal favorite.
Wow. And to your Clooney point, couldn't name you the lead actor of the Tarkovsky Solaris. Apologies to him. But it is, I mean, it's the Soderbergh Solaris, whatever you think of it, you got to admire it. It's a really huge swing. Also, half the length of the original. I mean, just like crazy stuff going on in that movie. It's which is a point in its favor, probably. So, but there's so many movies. He makes so many different kinds of movies that even if you don't like kind of his more popular ones, you'll find something to your taste in his filmography, which is kind of what we're going to talk about today.